The little girl was running so fast that she could barely breathe. Her tiny shoes slapped against the hot pavement as tears streamed down her face. Her voice cracked from screaming. Across the parking lot, a group of large bikers stood beside their motorcycles, laughing and talking under the bright afternoon sun. Most people looked at them and saw leather jackets, tattoos, and intimidating faces. But that day, one frightened little girl saw something different. She saw her last hope. Before we begin, if you believe kindness can come from the most unexpected places and that everyone deserves a second chance, please take a moment to like, comment, share, and subscribe to Acts That Matter. Tell us in the comments where you are watching from, and let us know if you believe one act of courage can change a life forever. The little girl's name was Marisol. She was only 8 years old, but fear had already become a familiar part of her life. Every day after school, she hurried home with a knot in her stomach, wondering what kind of evening awaited her. Her mother, Celeste, worked 2 jobs trying to keep food on the table and a roof over their heads. Life had never been easy for them, but things became much harder when Celeste started living with a man named Trent. At first, Trent seemed helpful. He fixed broken shelves, paid a few bills, and acted charming around neighbors. But slowly, his real nature emerged. He became controlling, angry, and unpredictable. The smiles disappeared. The shouting began. Then came the bruises Celeste tried desperately to hide. Every morning she covered them with makeup and forced a smile for her daughter. Every night she prayed things would somehow get better. Marisol knew more than her mother realized. Children always do. She heard the arguments through thin walls. She saw the tears her mother wiped away when she thought nobody was looking. She noticed the fear in Celeste's eyes whenever Trent's truck pulled into the driveway. Most painful of all was watching her mother convince herself that enduring the abuse was somehow protecting her daughter. That Saturday afternoon was unusually hot. The sun hung high above the small town, turning the streets into shimmering rivers of heat. Celeste was cleaning the kitchen while Marisol colored pictures at the dining table. Trent had spent the morning drinking. By noon, his temper was already boiling. What started as a small disagreement quickly exploded. The shouting echoed through the house. A plate shattered against the wall. Marisol froze. Her heart hammered so loudly she could barely hear anything else. Then came a sound she knew too well. A cry of pain from her mother. The little girl rushed toward the hallway and saw something that would stay with her forever. Celeste was on the floor, trying to shield herself while Trent towered above her in a rage. Fear consumed Marisol, but something stronger pushed her forward. She knew she could not stop him herself. She needed help. Without thinking, she ran out the front door. A few blocks away, a charity motorcycle rally had stopped at a local diner for lunch. Nearly 20 bikers had gathered there. They belonged to different clubs and backgrounds. Some were mechanics, some were veterans, some were business owners, a few were retired. Despite their rough appearance, many spent weekends raising money for hospitals, children's shelters, and families in crisis. Marisol spotted them from down the street. Her small legs carried her as fast as they could. Her lungs burned, her vision blurred from tears. When she finally reached the parking lot, she stumbled and nearly fell. Several bikers immediately noticed her distress. The crowd grew silent. The little girl pointed toward her neighborhood, barely able to speak through sobs. Her words came out broken and desperate. She begged for help. She cried that someone was hurting her mother. Everything changed in that moment. The laughter stopped. The casual conversations ended. Faces hardened with concern. One of the bikers, a broad-shouldered man named Wade Mercer, knelt to her level. Wade looked intimidating to strangers. His beard was streaked with gray, and tattoos covered both arms. But his eyes held the gentle kindness of a grandfather. Years earlier, Wade had lost his own daughter to a violent relationship. The pain never left him. Hearing Marisol's plea felt like reopening an old wound. Without hesitation, he stood. Within seconds, engines roared to life. The procession of motorcycles moved through town like a thunderstorm. Residents looked up from stores and sidewalks as the convoy rolled past. Marisol sat safely in a support vehicle with one of the bikers' wives while the group headed toward her home. When they arrived, the atmosphere changed immediately. The front door was open. Angry shouting still echoed from inside. Several bikers approached carefully. They were determined to help, not escalate violence. Wade called emergency services while others positioned themselves nearby. Their presence alone transformed the situation. Trent stepped onto the porch. For the first time all day, he looked uncertain. Before him stood nearly 20 men and women united by a simple purpose: protecting someone who needed help. The sight was overwhelming. No threats were made. No punches were thrown. No dramatic fight erupted. Something far more powerful happened. Trent realized he could no longer hide behind intimidation. Neighbors emerged from their homes, drawn by the noise and activity. Many had suspected abuse for months but never knew how to intervene. Seeing the bikers stand together inspired them to step forward as well. Suddenly Celeste was no longer isolated. She was surrounded by witnesses. She was surrounded by support. She was surrounded by people who cared. Police officers arrived shortly afterward and took control of the situation. Statements were gathered. Evidence was documented. Trent was removed from the property. For the first time in years, the house felt quiet. When Marisol reunited with her mother, they clung to each other and cried. The emotional weight of years seemed to pour out in that embrace. Celeste realized her daughter had carried a burden no child should ever bear. Marisol realized her mother was finally safe. But safety was only the beginning. The following weeks were difficult. Trauma does not disappear overnight. Fear does not vanish simply because danger leaves. Celeste struggled with guilt and shame. She blamed herself for staying so long. She worried about paying bills alone. She feared starting over. Yet every time she felt overwhelmed, help appeared. The bikers returned. They repaired broken doors and damaged furniture. They organized donations. They connected Celeste with legal assistance and counseling resources. They helped create a support network that continued long after the headlines faded. One member named Roland helped fix the roof before winter arrived. Another named Tessa delivered groceries every Friday. A retired nurse named Gloria spent hours helping Marisol process her fears through art and conversation. For the first time in years, mother and daughter experienced something unfamiliar. Hope. Months passed. The house slowly transformed. The walls were repainted bright colors. New curtains replaced old torn ones. Laughter gradually returned to rooms that had known only tension and fear. Marisol began sleeping through the night. Celeste started smiling without forcing it. One afternoon, nearly a year after that terrible day, the motorcycle group organized a community picnic in the local park. Families gathered beneath sunny skies. Children played games. Music drifted through the air. The atmosphere felt joyful and free. Marisol stood near the stage clutching a small piece of paper. She had prepared a speech. Her hands trembled as she approached the microphone. Hundreds of people watched quietly. The little girl looked at the crowd, then toward the bikers sitting together beneath a large oak tree. She spoke about fear. She spoke about courage. She spoke about how easy it is to judge people by appearances. Most importantly, she spoke about the day strangers became family. Many people in attendance wiped tears from their eyes. Even Wade struggled to hold back emotion. He remembered the helplessness he once felt losing his own daughter. For years he carried regret, wishing he could have done more. Helping Marisol and Celeste had not erased that pain, but it had given it purpose. The audience rose to its feet. The applause seemed endless. As years passed, the story spread far beyond their small town. Newspapers shared it. Community groups discussed it. Domestic violence organizations used it as an example of how communities can unite to protect vulnerable people. But for Marisol, the story was never about headlines. It was about one terrifying afternoon when she felt completely alone. It was about finding the courage to ask for help. And it was about discovering that heroes do not always look the way people expect. Sometimes heroes wear leather jackets. Sometimes they ride motorcycles. Sometimes they carry scars of their own. And sometimes they show up exactly when someone needs them most. As Celeste watched her daughter grow into a confident young woman, she often reflected on that day. She understood now that strength was not enduring abuse in silence. Strength was reaching for help. Strength was allowing others to stand beside you when life became too heavy to carry alone. The years brought healing neither mother nor daughter once thought possible. Their story became proof that darkness does not always win. That fear can be overcome. That communities can save lives. And that one brave child can start a chain reaction of kindness powerful enough to change countless futures. If this story has touched your heart, please take a moment to like, share, and subscribe to Acts That Matter. Your support helps spread stories of courage, compassion, and hope to people who may need them most. Special request. Please comment below with the words, "Kindness changes lives," if you believe ordinary people can become heroes through simple acts of courage. On a bright summer afternoon many years later, Marisol stood on the same street where she once ran crying for help. The fear was gone now. In its place stood gratitude. She watched a group of motorcycles pass by and smiled. The sound of their engines no longer reminded her of intimidation. It reminded her of rescue. It reminded her that when the world seemed darkest, strangers chose compassion over indifference. And because they did, a frightened little girl and her mother were given something priceless, a future. The lesson remained simple yet powerful. No matter how broken a situation may seem, kindness still has the power to arrive unexpectedly, stand its ground, and change a life forever.